Yes, my dear friends, in this lesson we will learn how to add logo or icon images to our interface. So let's get started. Of course, if you want to create a control interface on the computer for the Arduino board, we must use small images that undoubtedly interest our Arduino board. Thus, the interfaces we created look better. For example, if you are going to design an interface where we want to turn the LED on or off, we can add small images related to the LED to the interface. It's quite easy and simple to do this with the Pygame module. For this, we need to access the image file in Pygame and use the necessary functions. Of course, we need to know some information before adding the images we want to our interface. So let's start with the first rule. The image to be added must be in PNG format. Otherwise, the background color of the image will also be added. The second rule is the size of the image to be added should be small. For example, 48 by 48 pixels. The third rule, if copyrighted images are used in the created interface, the royalty must be paid or not used. We should know this information and choose the image accordingly. So you see here are some icon sites you can use. The first one is icons8.com and the second one is iconarchive.com. So you see here. Of course, regardless of these sites, you can access all the resources we use in the projects and examples from the resources section of the video. Now that we have learned the necessary information, so let's add our first image to our window. And you see here, we have Arduino icon.png file, and also the size of the image we will add is 48 by 48. And it is available in the resources. The image is the small icon of the Arduino logo. If we want to add our image to our window, we must add this image to the project folder we opened via Visual Studio Code. So now let's open Visual Studio Code and then let's keep this image file and let's drop to our project folder. And you see, here is our Arduino logo PNG file, and you see the size of this image is 48 by 48. So let's continue. Now that we have added our image, so let's examine and interpret our codes. When we reviewed our codes, we first imported our module, and you see here we started our module. Then we observed that we use the necessary function to add our image. So you see here. Here we created a variable named Arduino logo. To add our image to our variable, we use the load function in the image file in Pygame. So you see here. The task of this function adds the images we specified in the project folder to our Python codes. And by the way, we need to define a single parameter in load function. This parameter must be of string type, and we must specify the name and extension of the image we want to add. So you see here, in the first parameter, we defined our image file name and its extension. Now that we have learned how to add images, so let's focus on our other variable. As you can see, we created another variable named Arduino logo coordinates. So you see here. This is because while adding an image to our codes, we also need coordinate information to output the image in the window. For this reason, we created the Arduino logo coordinate variable and called the Arduino logo variable and used the getRect method. So you see here. So why? This method allows us to learn the coordinate information for the image it's called and to adjust the position of the image. It does not take any parameters. And also, if you want to adjust the position of the image we added, we need to act on the position variable. For example, we want to display the Arduino icon at a desired location in the window. For this, we will process our Arduino logo coordinate. Of course, since we are using the getRect method, some data is defined in the location variable. For example, top left, center, and top right are some of them. The reason for use is when setting the coordinates of special points in the image. As you can see from our code, when we create a structure like Arduino logo coordinate dot top left, and you see here we set the top left as 10,10. This structure indicates that the top left point of the image is x-axis 10 and y-axis 10. So let's continue. If we set the center position instead of the top left, this would be also set the position 1010 for the center point also. If we set the top right of the image to 1010, this will also set the position of the top right point in the image to 1010. As we continue to review our codes, we created our window and defined our size. So you see here, our window variable name is interface, and also the width of our window is 300 and the height of our window is 300. Next, we observe that we have created our loop, and you see here the billet method which caught our attention and we used for the first time catches our eye. The billet method allows us to display the images we will output on the window. It takes two different parameters. The first parameter is the variable name of the image we load. The second parameter is the variable we created for the location of the loaded image. Its usage is window variable, which is interface, and then we need to put a dot, and we should call billet method, and in the billet method first we will define our image variable name, and the second we will define our image coordinate variable. Of course, you may have a question in your mind. Teacher, why did we call the billet method with the interface variable? The answer is that any image we want to display is displayed with the billet method depending on the window in which we want to display the image. Since the variable name of our window is interface, so that's why we defined it this way. Of course, since we operate throughout the window, we also display that we have updated our window in our code. In this way, when we run our code, so let's run our code now, and you see we got the output as we want. For example, let's change the top left point. So let's change the x-axis of top left as, for example, 50. And if we run our code again, and you see, here is the result. Alright, my dear friend, in this lesson we learned how to add any logo or icon images to the interface. So let's move on to our other lessons and learn how to add background images to the interface.